What's going on, everybody? I am Bryan Tann, and this is another edition of Tann Talks. All right, what's going on, everybody? I am Bryan Tann, your host of Tann Talks, and every Monday, as we've been doing for the last few weeks, Melinda D and I are talking the Winchesters, and this Monday is no different. So, of course, I will introduce my co-host, Melinda. Melinda D, how you doing today?
Hey, I had a crazy weekend, so I'm glad that I had the time to sit and relax and get caught up on the episode.
All right. So, what was going on? Did you have to save someone from the perils of water, or?
No, so I'm in the middle of working on becoming a scuba professional, dive pro.
Yeah.
So Friday morning I had a dive where my instructor was evaluating how I led the group.
Okay.
And then when I finished that up, I was like, all right, what's the next step? Because the next step is your assistant instructor. We're teaching a class this weekend.
Oh, beautiful.
Great. So I jumped into that, and then a friend of mine for search and rescue needed help, so I dropped in to help with that. And then I had to teach Boy Scouts on Sunday morning, so it's just running
Stuff
constantly.
on top of stuff on top of
on
stuff.
top of stuff.
Gotcha.
So like Sunday afternoon happened, I was like, screw it. I'm sitting on the couch and watching Supernatural.
Screw it. Screw it. I'm gonna do stuff. That's awesome.
Yep.
No, that's cool. That's real cool. Yeah, this weekend was kind of nutty for me as well. Let me see. What did I do on Saturday? So taught sessions and whatnot, and then I had a fundraiser for my little cousin's school that I went to, and I gave away a month's worth of my sessions for a gift basket. So we'll see how that goes. And then yesterday, I actually went on a Cub Scout hike with said little cousin, and I took my dog with me. So, and Miss Odette had herself a ball. But then when we went back to my cousin's house, my cousin's 10-year-old Doberman, Hank, isn't fixed.
Oh.
Miss Odette is fixed. Mr. Hank wanted some sweet, sweet loving. And in dog years, he's 70. And dog years, Miss Odette is about, mid-20s. A little uncomfortable. Like, there was no growling or snarling, but first he tried to, give her the sniff, sniff. He's like, oh, you're a girl. Let me lick your ear. And now I'm going to hump you.
Dogs are so weird.
And she's like, oh, wow, this is a fun game. I'm going to run away. And Hank, who is 10 with bad hips, was like, oh, no, I'm chasing you. And he only gave her a couple of seconds to sip water, and then he's trying to hump. And that was the first time I've seen a dog's wink factor. And I must say, it was a little uncomfortable.
That's why I only get female dogs.
Yeah, I think that I'm probably going to be an only female dog. Yeah. I think that's just going to be what happens at this point. Because, Hank is a good dog and everything, but it's like, bro, boundaries.
Yep. Put it away, man. I don't want to see that.
Yeah. And, finally, when he finally got in the house, Odette was like, oh, thank God. I have a few minutes. And then as soon as he came outside, he was at it again. And it's like, watching my female run from a larger male dog, I now have a much better understanding for the female plight in social settings when males are involved. Because, damn. Yes, men are dogs. Yes, we run around and attempt to hump everything in sight, even those that see ourselves as more evolved. Are we really? Are we?
It's biology.
It's all biology. We're just hump monsters. So yeah. So that was my interesting day. So, but I had watched the fourth episode after last week when we watched the third episode. So I rewatched it this morning to get fresher eyes on it. And I'm gonna say right now, off the bat, I think that now last week's episode that we did the episode Your Lost Little Girl. And
Yes.
I said that that
Kids and-
episode was a great episode, and that really started to establish this show
Yes.
because episodes 1 and 2 are kind of slow paced. And this episode, not only did it keep it going, but it gave us a lot more insight to John and being a Vietnam War vet.
Well, not just John, but
Carlos.
yeah, John and Carlos, and we got
And
a little bit more on Lata and Mary and some of the trauma they've been through,
and a little bit of Millie, John's
yeah.
mother, as well. So this was a great character building episode that is also just a wonderful story. But so let me read off the synopsis. I had the synopsis here, and now I don't, which is kind of annoying. Hold on. Long story short, well, first of all, before I read the synopsis, I sort of gave you my ideas. What are your thoughts on it? Do you agree with me that this episode is really continues to give this show a chance to forge its own path and actually be a good show?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's got the monster of the week, but progressing the main plot, and we get a little bit more of what we're kind of used to in the latter half of the Parent show. The idea that, spoiler, the show's 15 years old, too bad. That Sam and Dean are really the chosen vessels for Michael and Lucifer, and God planned all of this from before they were born. And, there was this plan for Mary and John to get together, and we get this whole, everything's been set up for them kind of thing. And we get that in this episode too. So it's kind of giving me some parent series vibes, which is good because that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, absolutely. So the synopsis is, after the details of a veteran's death don't add up, Carlos brings everyone in to investigate, and he shares a detail about his past that makes John see him in a new light. Now, that synopsis, while it's not a bad synopsis, it's not a great synopsis.
No, it's not. That doesn't really
because
on in this episode.
Not to mention the fact that it also doesn't even give you the, I guess for lack of a better term, more of what this episode is. This is an episode where it's really, really hard to sum it up in just a couple of sentences.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, so we find out that there's a mental hospital that is catering to veterans of the Vietnam War. And one of said veterans was found dead. And as it stands, a lot of the details don't add up. So we also see at the beginning of this episode, John and Mary are sparring. And we started to see it last week with John's behavior, that something wasn't quite right. And now we're seeing it again during this training session where John is a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
To the point where Mary's like, all right, we're going to go toe to toe because we need to get you grounded. And I like the way she said it though. She was like, monsters are going to fight back. You need to fight with something that's going to swing back.
Right.
And I picked up on what it was like from the word go because I've been there. I haven't been in war, obviously, but with being, with the things that I've been through and the traumas that I carry, I recognize somebody having PTSD moments and being ready to snap.
Yep.
And
vigilance.
Yeah, where it's like you don't even realize it at first until you've lived with it a little while. And even still, it's hard to know when you're starting to spiral. But, John is just getting more aggressive and his focus is shifting ever so slightly. And I'm really glad that they picked this episode to do it with, because that would have been way too heavy for the first episode. I think. But just as you're now starting to get to know John, and you're like, well, if this guy lost a friend and he just talks about losing a friend, but there's no real aftermath of it. Here you go.
Right. Well, the thing with episodes 1 and 2 was everybody, well, most of us going into that, have John Winchester, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, John Winchester. We know
Right.
that John. We know
Right.
losing Mary. We know post Vietnam. We know a lifetime of hunting John. And we get
Right.
little snippets of who John might have been in the flashback episodes, right? But going
Little
into
bit.
episodes 1 and 2, that's not the John we know and are
Right.
comfortable with. And we're kind of seeing that evolution of, like I said last week, the hill I will die on is John Winchester was a bad father.
He really
And Mary
was.
Winchester was a bad mother, right? But
Mm-hmm.
you don't get that. Like, you see him in episodes 1, you're like, well, how do we get from this kid to the John Winchester we know? Or the
Right.
Mary in this to the Mary we know?
Right.
Even through flashbacks and whatnot.
Right.
So this episode really kind of made it a little bit, oh, okay, maybe this is how we get that John Winchester.
And that is sort of how we're getting that John Winchester in a lot of ways. We're seeing it. We're seeing the charismatic John. We're seeing even the John that we saw in flashbacks of the parent series. We're seeing some of that in this guy. And you know what, man? Drake Roger has really grown on me as John Winchester. He started and Meg Donnelly has grown on me as Mary. Like, these two had the hardest job for me.
Yep. Totally.
You know,
the characters we know and love or love to hate. And we've had actors play younger versions of them that we love.
Right.
And now that's not those actors, it's different ones.
Right. And Lotta and Carlos, I mean, they won me over.
I love Carlos.
I love Carlos.
Throwing on me, but I love Carlos.
I've got a crush on Lotta, no lie. I'm crushing on Lotta, like, real heavy. And Carlos, dude, Carlos is my dog. I like Carlos a lot.
I like Carlos. He's neat.
While this episode focused a lot on John, this in a lot of ways is Carlos's episode.
Yes.
Because Carlos wants to get in on this. Like, Carlos, and because there's so much that we don't know about him. So when he says, yeah, I was a medic in the Navy, and you're sort of doing a double take the same way.
Like, what? I don't see it.
I don't see it at all. Not with the hair, not with the attitude. And I mean,
he walks into the garage in his dress white.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I was like, okay, I'm here for it.
You know what? I'll tell you what. The one thing that also kind of gets me too is that Carlos is very, very comfortable in his sexuality, which you didn't see a lot in the 70s.
So yeah, and I think I was going to say that's going to be one of my kind of gripes, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, because the thing is, that doesn't mean that there weren't people that were LGBTQ plus in the 70s that weren't comfortable. But in fiction, these people were hyper, and I mean hyper stereotyped. You know, the women were made to seem like what Millie sort of looked as, you know, the overly masculine. Overall wearing overly masculine, which Millie is not. She's just not girly. And the males were depicted as basically very, very effeminate and ultra flamboyant.
Yep.
Which is not the case. I mean, look, are there some males and females of the LGBTQ plus community that fall into that? Sure, that's who they are. But it's not everybody. You're going to get people in all aspects. You're going to get guys that are very feminine that are actually hetero. And you're going to get women such as yourself that's not girly, but are hetero. Well, hetero-ish. I'm not calling you out. That was not my intention to call you out. You know the point that I'm trying to make.
I do.
You know, there wasn't a call out or nothing.
I know. And I think it's not with how Carlos is presenting as a character. I love him as a character.
As do I.
I think the part of it that chafed me was the immediate acceptance of him
Right.
knowing
No,
himself.
like
Everyone's
in
like, "Oh, okay,
Kansas,
cool." Like,
I'm pretty now.
that's not how it
Mary,
was in the 70s. Like, that was not like, you had your communities where it was safe, but, like, there's a reason we had Stonewall. There's a reason we had, the first
I'm
Pride was a riot because it wasn't
I'm
like that, and
pretty
so
sure rural Kansas, small town
yeah,
Kansas, like
private
Millie might
well,
be.
forget it.
Millie might. I mean, well, Millie, I could probably see. I can see Millie being cool with it.
Yes.
I could see Mary and Lotta being cool with it. I could see Ada being cool with it. But Samuel and some of the other males, and I don't see them being accepting. But at the same token,
He didn't when he was talking to Millie, assuming that Millie was gonna, accept that, there was no hesitation
yeah,
in
he was
how
just
he
like, yeah, some guys like it too. And she was
right.
just like,
And I was like,
oh,
"Oh,"
okay.
and then she gives him this little smile. And I was like, "Okay, so Millie's cool with it." But he didn't my assumption, considering I didn't live in that time, right, was that there would be some hesitation before you out yourself, even to your friends' parents, because
Right,
your parents probably don't accept you,
right,
right?
right.
So he was
That
just kind of
sort
like,
of,
"Yep, and some dudes too." And I'm like, he didn't even hesitate to
there was zero, that
boom,
was,
this
and
is who I am.
that's,
And that's great that he was comfortable as a character in that. But I think
it
even in
doesn't
the
feel
70s,
realistic.
I mean, look at okay, I'm gonna go back to the Parent episode series, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, in a completely different time.
right.
Like, the other hill I will die on is Cass and Dean belong together.
Okay.
Okay, we can fight about that later, but
Oh, I'm
he
not. I'm
did
not gonna look. I'm not gonna
no,
fight on it because Dean is a dog. I mean, Dean is a dog. Dean will stick it in anything that moves, male or female. That's okay. I'm okay with Dean being bi.
but where we get is from Cass, and you can tell from almost the minute you meet Cass that and the evolution of Cass as a character to loving Dean. He couldn't tell Dean he loved him until season 15, moments before he died.
Yeah,
It was that much like, even in a more accepting culture that we're in now, and you're not talking about humans, you're talking about an angel and a human, right?
right,
So,
right.
but
You
still,
can't make
you're
him. You
looking at
can't
like,
make a Nephilim.
how many times where you're like, man, just tell him you love him, and it didn't happen until the very last second. And it took that whole monologue, which is fantastic, right? From Cass
Misha
at the end there,
Collins.
from Misha,
Misha Collins.
and
Yeah,
um to
I
get
think
to that point. Whereas Carlos, you're just like, yep, this is who I am.
right. And I'll tell you what. Again, now, granted, I'm not. I don't identify as homosexual. Um, but I would assume that it is extremely difficult to come out if you're anything unconventional, especially in the 70s.
Yeah.
So I think that this is one, and I've been looking for little things to sort of be like, all right, we're bringing the 21st century, the 2023, 2022, 2023 mentality 50 years ago.
Yeah, just these unconscious biases we have now, right?
Right. So, but at the same token, while I appreciate the character feeling confident in self and strong enough in self to do that, I do 100% appreciate it. It just doesn't feel natural.
Right. It didn't feel authentic to the time period.
Right. But we also don't know how much, because a lot of stuff, there could be a lot more conversations going on off screen where
Totally.
maybe he does feel more comfortable with Millie to admit that. And he probably feels like if John reacted negatively, it's like, well, then you're out of the club.
No Monster Club for you.
Right. So, in a lot of ways, Carlos also holds all of the cards in the situation. Plus, I think also with his sort of rebellious lifestyle, he's been a rebel all his life.
Yeah, we get that in this episode.
So I think that that's probably another reason why he's not afraid, and he knows how to protect himself. I think that a lot of people.
No, that's totally true.
So while I'm like, this didn't feel very natural, at the same token, Carlos is a confident character. Carlos knows he can whoop your ass if he has to.
Yeah.
So I think that
No,
that's
totally.
why he's not afraid to be open. Because really, if you know that you can fight and you know you can protect yourself, are you really afraid that somebody's going to try to hurt you? You know. So, no, I appreciated that, and I appreciate it in this episode though. Also, getting back to the mental health aspect of it, where
Yeah.
Carlos felt comfortable enough to open up to John about about being in the Navy because he never talks about it. And we also get a little bit more trauma, and you alluded to it a second ago, of Lotta and Mary when John goes toward Maggie Campbell's room and Mary freaks out. Because remember, Mary's cousin, Maggie, who died off screen, it's only been a few months. And that door has not been opened.
Yep.
So it's really, really these two dealing with it. And you even hear the conversation that they have. I wish she was just here to tell me how to be okay with her being gone.
Right.
I mean, that was powerful. That was very powerful. This show, the one thing about Supernatural and the Supernatural mythos and the writing of Supernatural as a whole is that they've never been afraid to tackle hurt and trauma. I mean, they even say with hunters, there's only one way usually that you get into the life, and it's some sort of tragedy.
And we've seen that in the Parent episode.
Mm-hmm. We've seen how Dean handles it. We see how Sam handles it. We see how John handles it. We've seen how Bobby handles it. And
I can't remember her name, but the little girl with the Vitalis.
Oh, I don't remember. I don't remember her name.
She's a teenager, and she goes in with Dean. And Dean's giving her a hard time, and she gives him a hard time because he's old.
Yeah.
Back to her later, a couple seasons later, and she's hunting with 3 other kids, and those get in because of trauma, and she's like, because they've had this experience, this shared, traumatic experience.
Right. Yeah. And even at one point, someone was trying to say, why don't you just go to school? And she was like, oh, yeah, after everything I've seen, I'm just going to go back to school and deal with other kids. I mean, that's why Claire does what she does.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that. But what I further appreciated, and this is what I really want to touch on, is the fact that, look, man, cats coming back from Vietnam were treated like shit. When you look at...
Not much has changed.
Well, the only time it changed was after 9/11. Now, I remember even before 9/11, people were making fun of folks going into the military. Oh, you're too dumb to go to college, so you're just going to go in the military. You're just going to be a grunt, blah, 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 because you need someone to tell you what to do. 9/11 happened, and it's thank you for your service, and shaking hands, and blah, blah, blah. And you saw that in a lot of our media in the first 10, 12 years after 9/11. Now, granted, now that we're 22 years from 9/11,
that's what I was going to say.
We've moved past that. We're back to
you as a first responder, there is a lot, and I mean, not military service, but, medics, EMTs, fire, and military on top of that. There is a lot of that
you're just here to do for me. Well, you're here to serve.
You're a guy, right? You're a dude. You signed up for this. You knew what you were getting into. So your trauma, it doesn't matter because you knew that was going to happen.
Right. And because the problem is that, and George Carlin does an amazing skit on this where he talks about mental health with the military.
Yes.
At first it was like shell shock and blah, blah, blah. And then, the evolution of it. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. People would say, people would call people in the military grunts. They call Marines jarheads, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And there was just all this negative stigma. And then when 9/11 hit, we started getting the thanks for your service and blah, 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 and yada, yada, yada. People trying to steal valor, which makes me so angry when people do it.
There's a great show called The Night Shift.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was only 3 seasons. It was fantastic. I was devastated when it ended. But the premise of that is it takes place in an emergency room in San Antonio, and 2 of the emergency room doctors are military vets.
Oh, wow.
And so it deals a lot with PTSD and the trauma coming back from the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War. And there's an episode that specifically deals with stolen valor. Like, it's fantastic if you are into, like, yeah, it's got cheesy medical drama bullshit too, right? But it
Right.
deals a lot with that and the uniqueness of, like, this doctor who is doing these unconventional things in the ER because that's what he did when he was a combat doctor in Afghanistan.
Right.
He didn't have that, you know.
Right.
But we have the same thing with nurses and teachers now, right? When COVID happened, you guys are all heroes. And now that that's not the same kind of
Now these people are getting
crisis, it's
threatened and like
stop complaining that you don't get paid enough. Stop
right.
complaining that, you know,
Yeah.
you're working 40 hour, 85-hour work weeks. Be thankful you have a job. So
Right. Be happy that you're in the that attitude pisses me off so much. Like I would love to have someone's
sociology problem.
I would love to have someone say that to someone with me, like in that presence, because I would go off. I really would, because I've got a really, really, really close friend that is a teacher, and we've had discussions about what she goes through, and it's like, man. And I tell her, I mean, look, man, teachers, period, man. God bless y'all. I tell Sharon all the time because she's a preschool teacher. I say, you know what, God bless you, because I can't do it.
Yep.
I can't with other people's kids. I can't with other people's kids' behavior, and I can't with other people's kids because of the parents' behavior.
And the rule book.
The rule book.
Oh, the horse I always stand on is I used to be a caseworker for children and youth services. And the things that you have to, that you want to take action on and you can't, and the things you can't take action on that
it's almost like you have to
haven't been in the field in years, and it's
right.
But this is a whole side podcast.
That's a whole another side.
Yeah, talking about but yeah, with PTSD, they were treated like
I mean, if you watch the original Rambo, the whole reason why the original Rambo happens is because of how John Rambo is treated. Mm-hmm. And when you look at, and the monologue that Stallone did at the end of that movie is probably one of the greatest in cinema history of what a combat vet was going through when he came back. People call me baby killer, spitting on me, blah, blah, blah. Now, we don't see that. We don't see John going through that because he's going to small town Kansas. But not everyone had that benefit.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the fact of the matter is, though, is that John is going home, but he's still dealing with the pain and the trauma. And a lot of these vets that are in this group that are really, really kind of standoffish with this doctor because they feel like he's just another one of those doctors. And it's just, I'm really glad that we saw this doctor really legit wanted to try to help. But this is a person that is handcuffed by the hospital that he works at. And I'm really, really glad that we got to see that as well, because a lot of the times when we see TV shows of the past, they try to paint this picture of things were great when. But this guy who literally legit wants to help, and you can even see when he's having the group, he cares. Like he doesn't push Carlos, but when Carlos volunteers, he's grateful. He thanks him. He listens, never takes his eye contact off of him. And with John, when he goes to John, even though he coaxes John to speak, he doesn't push him. He doesn't pressure him. He politely talks to him in a way that's like, come on, you didn't just come all this way just to sit here and listen, why don't you share just a little something? He's not
right.
He's not trying to strong arm him. And I got to give a lot of credit to the actor playing this doctor because he's really, really good. He's very good. But we find out that this vet who went by the name of Patches was having these delusions of being hunted by a being in a helmet, in a horn helmet. Mm-hmm. And we find out that, we also find out that this has been happening more than, it wasn't just with Patches. Mary gets in touch with a reporter who it turns out is the same guy that she went to go see the Omega Man with.
Yes.
Which now we have another element. We have the reporter just trying to do good, which is kind of cool, because in the 70s, man, this was when Woodward and Bernstein helped bring down Nixon. So a lot of reporters were seen as heroes, and this young man is trying to do that. We find out that the culprit behind everything that's going on at this hospital is Mars. It's essentially Mars.
They used a term which I hadn't heard before, because I'm big into my Celtic heritage, right? So the Celtic gods and whatnot, and they called him Celtiberian, which I had never heard that term before. It's the area. So we're continuing on the big bads not native to North America.
Right. Well, I should be clear. It's Mars NATO.
Right.
Who,
So
he's not the Roman god Mars, but he's the equivalent.
Yes,
to the Roman god Mars.
Celtiberian is the Celts and the Celtic people who inhabited the Iberian Peninsula where Spain is now.
Okay.
Which is, like I said, it's a term I had never heard of before. So I had to look it up. But he's very similar to the god of war, Mars.
Right. To the point where they even put Mars in front of the name NATO.
Yes.
And we find out that he knows that the war with the Akrita is coming. He knows John and Carlos are hunters, but he sees something special in John. And now John has to fight him to save his and Carlos's life, because Mars NATO created an illusion. And Carlos stepped on a landmine, much like John's friend did, which is triggering all over again for John. So John is trying to find ways to bargain for Carlos's life. He has to fight. Meanwhile, Lotta and Mary have to go back and get Millie because they're trying to get John out, but they can only get John out if his mother does it. And they have to find Mars's amphora so that he can be mortal again. And I kind of like that thing where, these immortals have this totem to their power. And if it gets destroyed, then they're just a regular person. I mean, you want to talk about a huge Achilles heel. Another one of those. So, long story short, and there's a lot more to break down than just the storyline itself. The storyline itself, as good as it is secondary to the character building. And it's very rare that you can do something like this and it's any good. I mean, at the end of the day, they find it. Millie breaks it because her son is in trouble.
Yeah, Lassa's talking about it, and Millie's like, whack.
We don't have time for irony.
Time for this. Yeah.
And John gets the W, of course. But at the same time, Mars NATO tells John, you're ready to fight the Akrita.
Yeah, so we find out that much like we had in the Parent series, here is somebody who set John up from the beginning.
Yes. He's known who John is, and he set the whole thing up.
Yep, to make him ready to fight the Akrita.
Right. And, at the end of the day, then we see Mary cleaning out Maggie's room so that Carlos has some place to stay.
Yes, and that was such a sweet moment when he's like, I don't really feel safe sleeping in my van. And she's like, you can stay with me. And that was such a sweet. And then she goes, well, the Donny Osmond posters. And he goes, well, that sounds relaxing. And that was
yeah, we had to break up the heaviness with a joke. But yeah, Mary invites him to stay with her, so he's not sleeping in his van. And they clean out Maggie's room so he has some place to go. And that's not just healing for Mary, but it's also healing for Carlos, because Carlos has no one.
Right.
And
we see this growth from all of them, right? So
They get so much closer.
Yes, Lata and Mary, they discover these notes that Maggie was writing to nobody in particular, just of things. So the end of the episode ends with them writing their own notes on a porch swing.
Yep.
Right. Carlos encourages John to go back to the group therapy session and says, you know what, this is really working for me. So we see Carlos back in the group therapy session, which is fantastic.
Dressed as himself.
Dressed as himself. But then we see John in a bathtub. His mom shows up with dinner and he's not there. And we see John in a bathtub, fully dressed, in a ball, crying with the hot water just running on him. Clearly in the middle of some kind of PTSD episode. And Millie, man, mom of the year, Mary Winchester, take notes. Millie climbs in the tub with him.
And just holds him. Doesn't try to make it any better. Doesn't try to talk. Just holds him.
Holds him.
And that's even for people, look, if you've got a partner, a sibling, a friend who's having that moment, if it is safe for them and for you to touch them, just hold them and let them know that you love them without saying a word.
Yep.
Take it from someone who goes through these sometimes. Words, while they're nice, that's too much stimuli.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to comfort,
if your brain is in that fight or flight, you're not hearing words anyway. That conscious part, that prefrontal cortex of your brain that registers all of that.
It's taking a nap. It's napping.
Offline.
Yeah. If you're in a fight or flight moment and they let you touch them, you need to show them as much love as possible, as much gentleness, so that you can help bring them back. Yep. Take it from two people who go through it. Right here. We saw it. Right.
If you are a vet and you're listening to this podcast, or watching, whichever way you're consuming our media, reach out. There are groups that specialize in this, whether it's through the VA, private nonprofits, all kinds of groups that they're designed to help with, returning back into civilian life or, after effects of traumatic events.
Absolutely. And not just for vets, but I mean, survivors of assault, physical, sexual, whatever, get help. And if you don't have a strong support structure around you, it's time to find a better support structure. For this TV show, we're not all a Carlos or a John. We don't have supernatural monsters to fight or a cause to take up to busy ourselves. You've got to find the people that are going to love you and cherish you and protect you. And granted, these characters are fortunate enough in a world where they're fighting monsters on a weekly basis to have each other to protect themselves, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. So that's just something to consider. All in all, though, we're going to bring Bartender Smiley in here in a second. This was a good episode because, you know what? Let's bring in Bartender Smiley and then we'll go with that. I always get ahead of myself.
The Plotaholics rating system for the movies is a pretty simple system. Basically, they rate movies based on how many shots it takes to get through them. So if you got a good movie and you get through it all the way sober, then it takes 0 shots to get through the movie. And then if you got a really bad movie, then it could take up to 5 shots to get through the whole thing. I think you can try to figure out the middle part yourself. So what can I get you?
All right, so again, this is a great episode because, again, the story, while not being thin, isn't super thick. It doesn't need to be because it's about the characterization. It's about the character building. We got to know so much more about this young John Winchester and Carlos. We learned so much more. And I'll tell you what, this episode and the previous episode are definitely putting this show, it's already put this show on a great path of being its own thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm ready to tweet the hashtag out constantly, renew Winchesters or whatever that hashtag is, because it does deserve a renewal. This is a great show. And if the CW well, I think the CW will because of the Supernatural fan base, as well as the, I guess the positive mentality toward Jensen Ackles, Eric Kripke, and Mick G as a whole over at the CW. Because I mean, let's be real, Supernatural could still be going if they wanted to.
Yeah.
So with that said, I mean, this episode is a strong, solid one shot for me. The only reason why it gets the one shot is because, again, Carlos coming out the way he did felt it didn't feel super. It didn't feel supernatural. You know, it felt like something that was sort of like this series is going via the mindset of 2023 instead of being in the 1970s. But at the same token, I'm sure there are people who were young and homosexual in the 70s that'll say, yeah, I came out to my friend's parents and my friend because I knew. And if that's the case, cool. It's just that from what I remember as a kid in the 80s and the 90s, and then even with my younger brother in the mid 2000s, coming out was not an easy thing to do. Other than that, though, I mean, this is a great episode, and this further just shapes how great this series is.
So I think I am in complete agreement with your shot rating. This is a strong episode for me. And the only reason I was going to give it one shot was, again, it didn't feel super authentic to the time period, just in the way Carlos came out and the like immediate acceptance of that by those around him, right? There's a reason it's called Coming Out of the Closet, why we have National Day of Coming Out, why we have Pride Month, why we have all of that now.
Well, John already knew, but yeah, the coming out to Mary,
Millie.
yeah.
Now,
yeah, Millie.
Was like, oh, I felt comfortable because John knew, and so, you know,
John knew he didn't care,
right? And so I've got this support, and it could be any of those things, and this could just be a moot point, right? But having not survived the 70s,
right? This is us giving our mindset of something that neither one of us had to go through in that time period. Because I mean, I was born at the end of the 70s. You're an 80s baby.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but that was the only real bit. Yeah, I mean the Carlos sort of letting Millie know who he was felt very 2023 to me, and not 1970s.
Yes, and I liked the monster of the week, but it wasn't a
throwaway.
It wasn't a bad guy monster of the week. Like it was, but it was kind of like when, you know, they didn't have to fight this big bad that then the Akrita came because they're the ones that manipulated them into being here, and the Akrita took their essence, which we've seen with the last two villains. This was a villain, but it was a villain trying to move our protagonists along.
Right.
So
this was a story moving monster of the week, not a monster of the week for the sake of being monster of the week.
Right. It's like when the boys would go up against Billy. Like she was trying to help, but not doing it the right way. So she's still a villain, but really not, you know, like or even him killing all the veterans that he did to get to, but he was doing that to try
to find someone to fight the Akrita. Right? Yeah. Or you might even be able to look at Mars Nato as an anti-hero. Not even so much a villain. He's just an anti-hero he was just an antagonist. That doesn't mean he's a villain. Yeah. He's just against the protagonist.
Yes. And I like that because it took a long time for us to get that, you know, it was like Bella in season 2.
Yeah. No, Bella was season 3. Bella's season 3. Yeah.
You know, she's not a bad guy, but she's not a good guy.
She's definitely not a good guy.
But she's not really a bad guy either. Like, she's out for Bella.
Right, exactly. And that doesn't so much make
trying to fight the Akrita, but not doing it quite right.
Right. Or by what would make him a protagonist.
Right. Right.
A well-meaning antagonist.
I mean, every villain is the hero in his own story, right?
Very true. Now, next week's episode is Legend of a Mind. And in this episode, we learn a lot about Ada.
I really dig the character of Ada as a witchling who is somewhat coming out of a little bit of a broom closet here. I really, really, really appreciate that she
Jeez,
is
I've pseudo outed you
witch
twice.
twice.
I've
Twice.
pseudo outed you twice.
It's a good thing that you're one of my safe people.
That's true. Hey,
So I'm telling you now, anybody comes into this comment section with hate, Brian's coming after you.
I will about come through your computer screen and chop off your genitals.
That's the one.
That's just the way I operate. You don't mess with my people.
I really appreciate that Ada is a positive witch, considering how negative the witches are for the most part. We had handfuls in pockets, right? Like Charisma Carpenter and James Marsters, and Rowena's morally gray. You know,
she's definitely an anti-hero.
Yes, but and you know the Irish ones in the poker episode. So you have some, right? But the other ones that are definitely bad guys and bad.
Oh, absolutely.
Bad things. So I dig the character of Ada so far. Because
and we're gonna learn a lot.
Positive witch, which we don't usually get to see.
Right. So no, I'm excited to get your take on that episode as well. I really think that, like I said, this series is just getting better and better and better. And it was a very slow start.
I was concerned.
I was worried. I was worried too. But now I'm like, yeah, I'm for it. So if you want to be with us as we talk all this, make sure you like, you share, and you subscribe. Well, you don't have to share to join us every Monday afternoon or whenever we're done.
Actually, I have an update. Guess what, y'all?
What's that?
Next summer, and I'm so getting VIP tickets, Creation Con is coming back to Austin.
Oh, nice.
So I'm going to get VIP tickets so I can meet Jared, Jensen, Misha, like the whole crew.
Nice.
And because it's not a supernatural con and it's Creation Con, they're going to be talking about the other projects they're working on, like the Winchesters, the Boys, Walker, all those other fantastic shows.
Nice.
Which,
that's what's up.
Have you been watching Walker at all?
No, I gotta. You know what? Right. I think what I'm gonna do, because Sharon's got me watching Castle.
Yeah.
When Castle is done, I'll be like, let's watch Walker.
All right, so I'm not gonna give any spoilers away.
I watched like 2 episodes.
I'm all caught up now on Walker, and as I'm watching it, rewind back to last fall. My son is a scout, and I teach at scout events, merit badges. So we went to a merit badge camp at our local Lost Pines Scout Reservation in Bastrop, Texas. And as we roll up, there are these huge buses and production trucks and those big, bright, like they're filming something here. And I have no clue what they're filming, and they wouldn't tell us. And they had part of the mess hall blocked off with big, like, movable scaffolding, so you couldn't see what was in there.
Yeah.
And stuff, and they would not tell us. Fast forward to last week, I'm getting all caught up on Walker. They were filming Walker at scout camp while we were there.
Wow, you were like a couple of feet away from Jared Padalecki.
So I'm watching it, and I watch these guys come bursting out of this building, and I'm like, that building looks really familiar, and I couldn't place it right away.
Yeah.
Like, where have I seen this place? And I'm watching, and then the character runs, and I see a sign, like a notice post over a walkway. Like, that looks really, and then they shoot to a dark scene at night, and it's the climbing tower at Lost Pines. I'm like, son of a bitch, they were filming Walker when I was there. I was so stupidly excited that my son, who does not watch the show, I went back and I'm like, tell me if you know where this place is. And he's watching it, and he did the same thing. Son of a bitch, that's the climbing tower, Mom. I was doing that.
Son of a bitch.
Well, he was climbing it the night after they filmed there.
Oh, wow.
I was so excited. I'm like,
you were touching Jared Padalecki's hands.
I know. I've been there. I've been on where they filmed Walker. I was so excited.
That is really, really cool.
I totally fangirled for a minute, and I'm not going to hide it.
Hey, why should you?
Totally fangirled.
Why should you? I wouldn't. So, join us next week. We're going to be talking episode 5 of The Winchesters, titled Legend of a Mind. Great episode. I started to watch. I'm not done. I'm like halfway through. I'm halfway. Hey, technically that counts as this coming week's homework. So just
Okay.
don't play a hate on me because I'm ahead of the game.
Well, I started last night after I finished the episode we just did. My media center started auto the next episode. I'm like, no, this is next Sunday. Hit stop.
But no, so make sure you check us out. Also, this week we're going to be talking the season finale of The Mandalorian. Yeah, of Din Katan. Din Katan. Bo Jarn. Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. Since she's in charge, I think he'd have to take her name. He'd have to take her name.
Yes, he would.
So yeah, so we're going to be talking about that. We just got to iron out because, oh boy, Brian's brain don't always work. But
are you about to drop on me that you have to be up early again?
No, but I do have to teach that evening. So we just got to figure out how we're going to do this.
I'll make it work.
Yeah.
We're watching Firefly after that for the Thursday, but what are we watching after this? Do we have anything yet?
All right. Oh, what's up, my new man, my new buddy, Rolly. What's up? He's checking us out. Hope you enjoying the content. I think I don't know. What do you want to do after the Winchesters? What do you want to do? That's also something too, because we got to make sure it's something that Katie's going to want to do also.
Well, she's doing Firefly. I mean, for us,
she's going to do Fire for us to do on Mondays.
Going to do me and you. That's not something she's into.
Want to do Walker?
Like starting back from the beginning?
Yeah.
You can do that.
Or we could do Lethal Weapon. The Lethal Weapon series. Did you never watch the Lethal Weapon series with Damon Wayans?
No. I'll come up with some. I'll look at some TV shows.
All right. Matter of fact,
come out to my friends and be like, "What do you want us to watch next?"
Yeah, you know what? Matter of fact, I'm gonna put a poll on the Plotaholics Facebook.
I will say this in advance, though. I will automatically say no to anything that is like American Horror Story. Like I don't do horror. That's not my jam.
I don't even have interest in American Horror Story.
No, I just use that as an example. I have zero interest in that kind of thing.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well.
Do you ever watch Stargate?
I do not.
I just started that again with my daughter.
Okay.
So I'm doing a rewatch of that with her.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna probably do. Let's do a poll.
Yeah.
We'll do a poll of what do you guys want us to do? Now, here's the thing. Y'all got to get interactive on this. I'm gonna put it on the Facebook group. We're gonna share it out, and we'll go from there. So if you want to follow the Plotaholics podcast, Facebook group. Just go to Facebook and search Plotaholics. You'll see the picture of Shane Wilson and myself as the parent series of Tann Talks. The Plotaholics is on a hiatus at the moment, so we're keeping things going. But yeah, you know,
Gen V start.
What's that?
I went to Google when Gen V started and the trailer started.
Gen V.
Yeah, Gen V. That's the
for the boys
spinoff.
Oh. I think Katie wants to do The Boys also.
I desperately want to do The Boys because
I bet y'all do.
I love Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Jensen Ackles, and the show is. I'm really digging The Boys. It's funny. I watched a clip from a convention where Jensen is talking about his costume for
as
The Boys.
Soldier Boy.
And he's like, and they tell and we got the costume pretty much set, and they bring out this big bucket of cod pieces, and I have to pick one for the costume. He goes, and I've got it down to 2 or 3. He says, and then I'm talking to Jeffrey Dean Morgan about it, and like, oh yeah, it's my 4th costume fitting. He goes, so the cod piece, and Jensen's like, so then I realized I'm talking to my dad about what I got going on.
My wiener piece.
Hysterical.
You know what? I'm going to say it now. I think Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character is going to play Soldier Boy's dad.
That would be awesome.
I think so. Because we found out last season that Soldier Boy is Homelander's father. Which is...
Is Katie a Marvel fan?
Kinda.
Because we got Agatha Coven of Chaos coming up.
Oh, crap. Yeah, we do.
I mean, that's late 23, but we could do that.
Yeah, we could do that for that time frame. Absolutely. As my cat digs her claws into my jeans. But either way, so what we're going to do, since we're still about a good 7 weeks, give or take, seven or 8 weeks, because the Winchesters is a 13 episode season, right? So we're 9 more episodes.
Oh, we can do Secret Invasion. That comes out June 21st. We should just be finishing this up.
That's a good idea.
Right around then, and because I know Loki got pushed back, and then we've also got What If Season 2, Ironheart, Echo, Agatha, and Daredevil all this year for Phase 4.
Nice. I'll tell you what, man. I'm so excited for the Marvel series that are coming out. I'm excited for Agatha, dude. Catherine Hahn. I've always got time for her.
There's a Wakanda series coming up.
And I'm you know what? Most of the Marvel stuff, when it comes out, I'm excited. I love the TV shows. It's the movies that I kind of get tired of after a while, because the movies become the same thing. You can copy and paste.
I'm kind of feeling that with Phase 4. Like, I really dug the new Thor movie. Well, latest Thor movie.
Yeah. I could do without it.
Norse mythology is my thing, though. So
I mean, that's cool. That's cool. It's just I'm just like
I mean, Wakanda Forever was fantastic.
Yeah. I cried from the word go.
Yeah, I haven't seen Quantumania yet, so I can't comment.
Neither have I.
I kind of like Kang, and Kang being the new big bad versus Thanos. I think they can do a lot with that. I like the way the direction we're going with Doctor Strange. So I'm here for it. So we could probably do Secret Invasion. We might need like a week or two filler in between.
Yeah, that's fine. I could come up with something. We'll come up with something. But all right, guys, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and let us know some of the other things that you maybe want us to do in between all the other crap that we got going on.
Give me something new to watch.
Yeah. So this week, we're going to get together with the third member of our crew, Katie Salitis. We're going to be talking about The Mandalorian, the season 3 finale, which is going to be very interesting. And then after that, we're going to be going with Firefly, because I've never watched Firefly.
And Serenity, we'll do that at the end.
And then we're going to do Serenity at the end. And I might even be able to finagle a cameo from Shane Wilson himself when we talk Serenity. So that'll be interesting as well. I'm still working on making that happen. So with that being said, thank you so much for everyone that came out. And we will talk to you guys next week.